Afternoon where I am anyway, afternoon, morning and evening. My name is Phil Alexander and I'm the coordinator of these COZ sessions. I'm sure more people will join as we get going. I'm delighted today to welcome Jeff Janeczko, who's going to be in conversation with Wolf Krakowski. Jeff is the curator of the Milken Archive of Jewish Music, and he's a visiting researcher with the Lowell Milken Center for Music of American Jewish Experience at UCLA, which is where he holds his PhD in ethnomusicology from. And his dissertation there looked at Jewish music and identity in the Radical Jewish Culture recording series on the Tzaddik label, which leads us nicely to his co-conspirator this afternoon. Wolf Krakowski, I'm going to read this bio because I love it. Wolf Krakowski takes a highly personal approach to traditional Jewish folk song that has been described variously as Yiddish Willie Nelson, Fiddler on the Roof laced with Bob Dylan, and Yentl as done by Leonard Cohen. But none of these appellations fully capture the sound and spirit of a self-described Luftmensch, whose professional titles have also included Carney, luthier, carpenter, and cameraman. Over to you two.
Oops. Thank you, Phil. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you this morning or afternoon, evening, depending on where you are, and to really just be bringing you some music and conversation with my dear friend, Wolf Krakowski. If you've seen any of my previous presentations to this group, you've no doubt noticed that they have exclusively featured composers affiliated with the Milken Archive, which is where I've been working for the past 10 or so years. As Phil mentioned, prior to that, I was studying ethnomusicology at UCLA, where I got my doctorate. And when I was doing my studies there, I wrote my dissertation about a series of recordings on the Tzaddik label called Radical Jewish Culture, which is how Wolf and I first got connected. So I've known Wolf for, I guess, close to 15 years now. So this picture on the right here, I took of him when I first met him in 2007, I believe. I'd been living in the New York area and doing some field work on the scene there, and drove up to Wolf's house in Northampton, Massachusetts, and talked to him about his work with about his music and how he got involved with the Tzaddik label. And the picture on the left was taken about 3 years ago. I was in the northeastern part of the United States doing some oral histories for the Milken Archive. So we stopped into Wolf's house and I collected his history for the Milken Archive. So I've known Wolf for about 15 years. I mentioned that he has 2 albums, or I should say Phil mentioned he has 2 albums on the Tzaddik label. Wolf once joked with me that the moil at his bris said he would grow up to be a tzaddik, and instead he grew up to be on tzaddik. So if you're familiar with Tzaddik records in the Radical Jewish Culture series, you'll know this is a series that really identifies strongly with the avant-garde, with experimental music. The artists there come from these backgrounds where they've generally been steeped in avant-garde jazz and experimental music, and kind of bring a very personal approach to exploring Jewish music of various varieties. Wolf does not come from this world. He is a self-taught musician who came of age in North America during the era of folk music and rock and roll, but he's also a European born Jew and a native Yiddish speakers. And he brings these 2 aspects of his background together through music, and he does it in a very personal kind of way. So we've prepared, if we get through everything, about 5 songs that we'll listen to today, and we'll just intersperse some conversation with Wolf in there. What I thought I might start with is just try to offer a few words to just try to frame the session. Since we're all, or most of us are academics, just some kind of maybe theoretical kinds of framing words that we might think about. One would be hybridity, so kind of what happens when when an artist puts these two ostensibly different cultures together. Another word that might come to mind would be authenticity, both in the sense of being true to a particular tradition or practice, but also in the sense of being true to oneself as a kind of artistic authenticity. And then a final one might be interpretation. You know, how do artists kind of put their own personal stamp on something that already has an identity of its own? So these 5 songs that we're going to play together, these are all folk songs or songs that have been composed by somebody other than Wolf and have a certain kind of identity of their own, a certain life of their own. And Wolf brings his own kind of background to those. So I guess before we delve in, Wolf, maybe you could just talk a little bit about the circumstances surrounding your birth, not just where you were born, but how your family came to be in this particular situation and some of the things that they went through to get there. I think we'll need you to unmute since everybody is muted.
Okay. My parents, as young people in their 20s, found themselves in Lodz, Poland, when the Germans invaded. They were there under occupation for a few months. And number one, they had heard Hitler's speeches on the radio, and before he came to power, and after, and they started to see a lot of the brutality literally arriving at their doorstep. So they did not wait around to be registered and start the process, for ghettoization and eventual processing for death. They didn't wait around for any of that. One night, they tore off their yellow stars and they ran for it. And they made it to Warsaw, where my mother had an uncle who owned what later became the headquarters of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, Mila 18. They crashed there one night, and the next morning, my mom went to get train tickets for my father and his brother and herself. At the train station, the Germans had local Poles who it was said, they could smell a Jew, and they were there patrolling, pulling Jews out of line. And my mom wore a peasant kerchief. She tucked her hair in. She did speak an excellent Polish, unaccented. And when this Polish collaborator beckoned that to the German soldier that this was a Jew, my mom, before De Niro's famous line, she basically said, "You talking to me? You talking to me?" And it worked. And the guy backed off. She got her tickets, and the three of them got train tickets east, where there, a series of very sad and tough, impossible situations presented themselves, and through a succession of miracles, they survived them. This included getting picked up by the NKVD. I mean, before that, they were robbed of everything. They were robbed of everything, exhausted in a train station. The NKVD, like a Russian FBI, picked them up, and the law was such at the time: a stateless Polish Jew, refugee, slavery, legal slavery. They were deported into the Arctic Circle and cut cut lumber for what was to become a site of a nuclear reactor in the 60s, a town called Kotlas, where there was a nuclear reactor built. Anyways, they cut lumber for that. After 18 months, the law changed and they were liberated. And Stalin's idea was that he would send these westernized Jews to points east and civilize the more Asiatic Russians, which he did. And he sent them to a collective labor camp where they worked. And at a certain point, Polish Jewish citizens in exile were allowed to form their own fighting force, legal fighting force, under command of the Red Army. This was called the Wanda Wasilewska Brigade, all Polish Jews.
Mm-hmm.
My father, having had basic military service, basic military training, he was made an officer in this brigade, and he went to war as a combat soldier, and he was involved in pushing the Germans out of Germany, out of Russia, back west, and he was wounded there, and he sat out the last couple of months of the war in an apartment they gave him that had been occupied by a former SS man, and my mom got a telegram saying no address but the town. Sure enough, it took most of a month to drag herself across Russia with my older brother, and they found one another, and this apartment, my mom says, was a luxury apartment, 2 grand pianos, oil paintings on every wall. And the point is I was conceived there, surrounded by fine art. And that's the story. So they sat around there for a little while, and they started to have pogroms again in Poland. They said, we're getting out of this country. And they arranged to be smuggled to Palestine, and they began that process. In utero, we were arrested by the Italians and deported to refugee camp in Austria, where I came into the world. I will say, back it up a little bit. When I first played my mom my recording of Freeling, she she spaced out a bit, and she said how when we were being smuggled out of Poland, there was a young man, a refugee, who sang that song. I heard it in utero.
Which is a song we're actually going to hear in a few minutes here. A song that would have been probably by that time kind of a popular song that was making its rounds, I would guess largely through oral transmission at that point. But before we get to that, I just want to start with the first song from Wolf's first album that was released on Sodic. This is an album called Transmigrations, or Gilgul. Sorry, I keep hitting leave meeting instead of share, and I really don't want to do that. So let's take a listen. It's a song called Sane Breeder.
Zehn Brüder sind in mir gewesen, haben mir gehandelt in Wahn. Sind in eins von uns gestorben, sind in mir geblieben nah. Neun Brüder sind in mir gewesen, haben mir gehandelt in Pracht. Sind in eins von uns gestorben, sind in mir geblieben acht. Fiedel mit dem Fiedel, Gedaille mit dem Bass. Spiel je mir a Lied, läuft mit dem Gas. Ai, 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 ai. Spiel je mir a Lied, läuft mit dem Gas. Ach, Brüder sind in mir gewesen, haben mir gehandelt und getrieben. Seinen eins bin ins gestorben, seinen mir geblieben sieben. Sieben Brüder sind in mir gewesen, haben mir gehandelt mit Gebäcks. Seinen eins bin ins gestorben, seinen mir geblieben sechs. Fiedel mit dem Fiedel, Gedaille mit dem Bass. Spiel je mir a Lied, läuft mit dem Gas. Ai, 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 ai. Spiel je mir a Lied, läuft mit dem Gas. Sechs Brüder sind in mir gewesen, haben mir gehandelt mit Strimm. Seinen eins bin ins gestorben, seinen mir geblieben bin. Fünf Brüder sind in mir gewesen, haben mir gehandelt mit Bier. Seinen eins bin ins gestorben, seinen mir geblieben vier. Vier Brüder sind in mir gewesen, haben mir gehandelt mit Thai. Seinen eins bin ins gestorben, seinen mir geblieben drei. Drei Brüder sind in mir geblieben, haben mir gehandelt mit Blei. Seinen eins bin ins gestorben, seinen mir geblieben zwei. Drei, 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 Zwei Brüder sind in mir gewesen, haben mir gehandelt mit Beiner. Seinen eins bin ins gestorben, bin ich mir geblieben nur noch einer. Ein Bruder bin ich mir geblieben, handel ich mit Licht. Sterben tue ich jeden Tag, weil zu essen hab ich nicht. Fiedel mit dem Fiedel, Gedaille mit dem Bass. Spiel je mir a Lied, läuft mit dem Gas. Ai, 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 ai. Spiel je mir a Lied, läuft mit dem Gas.
So I cut that song. It runs about 7 or 8 minutes long. I just faded it out there a little bit early so we could continue our conversation. I think that's the only one that I had to cut, but I didn't want to cut out the guitar solo there. So
Thank you.
I could tell you a little bit that I know about that song. That it's apparently a folk song. No one's quite sure if there is an actual author. I read that the earliest transcription of the song dates about 1901. It appeared in the through the work of Saul Ginsberg and Pesach Merrick, the ethnologists who were documenting Jewish culture in Eastern Europe around the early 20th century. And then I learned that it was also used as the basis of a large choral work that was, it was called the Jüdische Todessong, the Jewish death song, that was performed by a secret chorus in the Sachsenhausen during the Holocaust, where they changed the lyrics to say, Yiddle Mitten Fiddle, whoever Mitten Boss, play us a little song as they march us to the gas, and of course the Yiddish word for street is gas, and they just left that word the same, but of course the meaning was much different. It's certainly one of those songs that lends itself to being improvised on, and for people to kind of change the words to fit the situation, whatever situation they might find themselves in. What's your history with this song? How did you first come to know it?
Well, in 1995, I went to Poland, and believe it or not, Auschwitz and Treblinka, they have gift shops, as it were. And at one of these places, I acquired a cassette. All it had on it for title and any information was Ghetto Leader. And it had no artist name or any of that. On this tape cassette was a jaunty version of Saint Breda, which I found out later, this group, a 70s German group called something like Zupfengeigel or Zupfengeiger. They were popular and very highly visible Jewish music ensemble in Germany in the 70s. Anyways, they had a version which triggered my imagination and shifted it into the groove and the vibe and the mood that I subsequently recorded. And it didn't start out with anything that definite, but just running it down 2-3 times in the studio with the Lonesome Brothers. That's what we came up with. So in my mind, it's kind of the intensity of being chased and or rushing to towards something, and like one of my favorite genre, which is American country music. The instrumentation and it's kind of the feel of it. Took the song there. I took it there. It took itself there, and that's about it. Interesting. When we were in Poland, we met an old gentleman in Lodz who offered to show us around. Jewish man who lived there his whole life, came back after the war, and so it was very strange in that he showed us everything that was no longer there. I'm sure you understand. And one place I'll never forget, he pointed out a house, and he said, this was the home of a family with 10 sons who all perished. So that's
this was on that same trip.
Yeah.
Where you found the tape. And of course, it also kind of calls to mind military conscription too, that a family would be kind of successively losing a series of kids to military conscription. Can you recall, say, the first time you thought about doing some kind of Yiddish song in this Americana sort of style.
Okay, yeah. Let's say let's say from 1980, a couple of years afterwards, I was very much I immersed myself in Yiddish music, all the old records I could find. I acquired a lot of them, and I just I immersed myself in a lot of this material, and I recall starting to get ideas of certain songs that I like, that I relate to personally. Usually the lyrics, the sentiment, the mood, and so I'm talking about stuff that probably would have been recorded in the 40s or 50s at the latest and earlier. But I would start to reimagine these songs with a more modern, contemporary suit of musical clothing. And that is basically it. And I would just, fool around with this material driving in the car with my wife, and at first it elicited it was a bit of a joke, because when Yiddish had been presented with either black music or country music or any of that stuff, there was always a parody. It was always a parody and a joke. And so that's the kind of the first place it took me, but not for very long. Not for very long, because I respect the blues and country music way too much to think that the only way Yiddish and these genres could merge would be by making it a joke. And that's not what I was about to do. I found that I could sing some of these things, and they would have they'd feel all right. They'd feel like this is just a contemporary arrangement of a good lyric. And a lot of music comes to us that that way. And just part of the whole process. I think any musician comes upon naturally looking for vehicles of expression, and that was the thing for me. So I know who I am and where I come from and all, and my roots in Yiddish are deep. Is a language I was nurtured in, and spoke to my parents in, and however, my experience is North American. My musical experience, the stuff on the radio, and then I was able to acquire records. So I absorbed that. First of all, because it was really good. It sounded really good to me.
Yeah.
And it just became part of me. And when I could get to the point, I could make my own record. At that point, it had, this stuff had, had marinated long enough for it to just become a natural, organic expression of who I had become at that time. In the 50s and 60s, even later, believe me, there was no Jewish music scene or anything resembling it, in Toronto. You might have had some very sad little theater troupe might have trudged up from New York once in a decade or two, and gave some kind of a nostalgia ridden performance, in a shul basement. not my scene, not attractive.
Yeah, and of course,
I
at that
was,
time, I would think that most of what you're experiencing in terms of Yiddish is either this kind of nostalgia of the theater, or it's very much associated with humor. So you mentioned, like, the things that you were experiencing were sort of parodies, and it
if
seems
that,
like there was, of course, a long tradition of Yiddish literature and poetry, but a lot
yeah.
of that wasn't necessarily at the forefront at that time.
The parodies actually didn't even kick in so much until the 70s, and like your klezmer revival, where some
Mhm.
people, thought, wouldn't it be a hoot? Wouldn't it be a hoot to present something, like as Yiddish blues, as a joke, which I never bought into at all.
Mhm.
I just that's just not the way I see music, especially my presentation of it. But anyways, by the time I got to make the records, which I had prepared for, and although you never know what you're going to get till final mix and all the stuff that happens
Sure.
in the recording process. But I had prepared for them. I had prepared them, and had a pretty solid idea of what I wanted out of these songs. What I did not want is to recreate them, to be a human tape recorder,
Mhm.
and say, "Oh, this was hot in in Poland in '43. I'll sing it just like it was. The other guy did it.
Sure.
It doesn't do anything for me,
Yeah.
and I don't think it advances the music. I understand some music. The whole point is to play it just like it was written, note for note and all that. This is not my approach, my experience. I am I'm autodidactic. I did not have anything resembling music lessons, certainly not any formal training or any advanced training.
Mhm.
I created, or got my musical education just at what was available to me, free.
You were
So
hanging out with people, and
yeah, so I was a product when I was a
picking things up from
teenager.
people. So sure.
When I was a teenager,
Can I stop you for one
I
second
went to
though? Can we
coffee
listen
houses. I went to coffee houses, and a lot of the
Yeah.
folk and blues artists. Those were the people I learned from, and it took years and years and years to process a lot of this stuff, for sure, because like I say, I come through an era where there was just a lot of silly stuff. You had your great folk scare in the 70s and stuff, and Harvard students wearing overalls singing about boll weevils, and stuff like that. Was okay.
Yeah.
That's what it is what it is. But with me, it happened differently. It was different. I say I was not financial. My parents did not invest in me as a musician. They didn't pay for lessons. I didn't pay college tuition. I was not invested on that level. For me, it was more about coming to a place where, where I wanted very much to express myself and who I had become. And
You set us up nicely for another song here. I don't want to cut you off, but I wanted to be able to hear the music, because you're talking about playing things the way they quote unquote should be played or were played versus one's own interpretation of a song. So I want to segue now to the song you mentioned at the very beginning of our talk here, which is it's a love song, comes from the Vilna ghetto. It's called Freeling, which simply means springtime. The text is by Shmerka Kazarginsky, and the music was written by Avram Brudno. The subject of the song is Kazarginski's wife, who was actually murdered in the Vilno ghetto, and the words kind of describe him wandering around the ghetto, going through these, various kind of mundane daily activities, or wandering around, and he's looking for her. He's having, memories of her when we were standing on this particular corner, or we used to walk through this gate together, or something like that. From what I've gathered, the song was eventually incorporated into some theatrical productions, and this was one of the ways that it spread, and that it also kind of circulated among the partisans, of which Kazarginsky was one, and it kind of became almost a kind of resistance song among the partisans. So I was actually able to find a very old recording of Kazarginsky singing the song. This was made in Munich in 1946, so the same year you were born, if I'm not mistaken, and also
47 to be accurate.
47, so a year before you were born, sorry. And actually in the same region, because the DP camp that you were born in was kind of in this like southern German Bavarian region, right?
Austria, right down the hill, down the mountain from Hitler's summer home, a little town called Saalfelden.
So let's hear, I'm just going to play maybe a minute or so of Kazarginsky singing Frühling in 1946.
הגטולית מחבר קצ'רגינסקי, מוזיק אברמל ברודנו, gesungen ומחבר. Ich blonde in Ghetto und Ghetto zu Ghetto und Kenny Getimen Kino. Mittag ist mein Lieber, wie trockt man Riber, Menschen aus Obschot Schavon. Es leucht auf mein Heimat, der Himmel, der Bläue, wo hab ich jetzt davon. Ich steh wie ein Bettler bei jedem Feuer und bettel ein bisschen Sonne. Oh, Frühling, nimm zu mein Treue und bring meine Liebste, mein Treue zurück. Frühling, auf deine Flügel bläue, und nimm meine Hand mit und bring es zu mein Glück.
I just wanted to share that, since we actually had it available to actually hear Kazarginsky singing the song, and we can listen to Wolf's version now, and then we can talk a little bit more about this song afterwards. I've also trimmed this one just a little bit.
Ghetto, in Gessel, zu Gessel, kenn ich gefunden kein Ort. Nicht du ist man Liebe, wie trug man a Riber. Menschen zu Gott a Wort. Es lacht auf mein Heimat, der Himmel, der Bläue. Hab ich bitte find. Ich steh wie a Bettler bei jedem Teuer, Deckel a bissel Sinn. Frühling, nimmt sie man Treue, bring man Liebsten, man Treuen zurück. Frühling, auf deine Flügel bläue und nimm mein Herz mit und gib es auf mein Glück. auf deine Fliegel bläue und nimm mein Herz mit, gib es auf mein Glück. Ich geize der Arbeit vorbei in der Stiebel, in Treue der Teuer vermacht. Der Tugatze Hälfte, der Blumen verwelkte, sei Vianin versei ist auf Nacht. Fahr Nacht auf zurückwegs das Neue der Treue, und du hast die Liebste gewahrt. Warten du in den Schuten, noch kennt du dann Trottis, pflegst zwischen mich lieblich und zart. Frühling, nimm sie man Treue und bring man Liebsten, man Treuen zurück. Frühling, auf deine Fliegel bläue und nimm mein Herz mit und gib es auf mein Glück. Frühling, auf deine Fliegel bläue und nimm mein Herz mit, gib es auf mein Glück. Es ist heuer der Frühling, vor Frühen gekommen. So blit hat sich Bänkschaft nach dir. Ich seh dich wie Äste, verluden mit Blumen. A freudiger Geist zu mir. Die Sinn hat vergossen den guten mit Strahlen, zerstrotzt hat Erd sich in Grün. Man Treuen, mein Liebster, wie bist du verfallen, mit geistlicher Rost in mein Sinn.
So I had to cut that one down a little bit too, just in the interest of time.
Very deftly done. Very good.
Thank you.
The lead guitar,
I hate to cut things off, right?
Sorry. The lead guitar player is Jim Armenti.
Yeah.
Long experience in the bars and dives and honky tonks of Massachusetts and New England. It's been
since you mentioned Jim Armenti and you mentioned the Lonesome Brothers earlier, I actually wanted to ask you about them because it seemed just such a big part of your sound and kind of realizing the final product. How did you come to get involved with them, and like what kind of role do they play in actually shaping that artistic product?
Jim Armenti was in a band called Klezamir that my wife Paula sang in. He's a multi-instrumentalist, makes his living solely through things musical. He also happens to be my neighbor here in Western Mass. I can get to his place without going through a single traffic light through the back roads. And he has a little home studio. Anyways, how did I get involved? Okay. After 11 years of marriage, my wife and I split up. I left the house. I was staying with an artist friend. None of my friends would let me leave town. And so I just said, well, I asked myself, what would I like to accomplish before, in the event that I die? As I want to make a record, always wanted to make a record. And for the first time in my life, I've been working for Spielberg on as a cameraman on Survivors of the Showa Visual History Foundation. I had saved money for the first time in my life, and I started to thinking about producing this record. And Jim Armenti was the first guy I called. He already had a band, the Lonesome Brothers, which at that time included Ray Mason on bass guitar and Bob Grant on drums. And yeah, it was, I could organize it and get everybody paid, and we just started. And believe me, it was not without its misadventures and and trials and all. But you're talking about renting a studio with a guy. He hiked the rents during the middle of the session, that sort of thing. And we also had a tape deck. We had a tape deck, eat tape twice, which required long drive into Boston. Once we saved it, once we didn't, had to be redone. Things like that. Anyways, okay, so they, I hired Jim in the band, and there are different studios, and I'm talking the cheapest places you can get to make it work financially, and just great because it forced me to really focus and and do this stuff, and in the end it exceeded my expectations. And
this is transmigrations we're talking about.
Yeah,
right?
transmigrations. Also, I will say that so after I was making this, while I was out of the house, and I got started to see my wife again, and play the rough tracks. She liked what I was doing a lot, and we did reconcile, and she sings on the album with a couple of other women, and we do perform a duet as well. But it was made. It was really made in a crucible in terms of what was going on. In my life, and that's it. It was a great time because it demanded all my attention, really.
Sure.
And
that's how we get through dark moments like that sometimes.
Right. And Armenti and the guys, they're great. There was so much. I think there were decades and probably over a century of musical experience in that studio.
Solid backup band you got going for you there, for sure. Yeah.
What's that?
Solid backup band you have working for you. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I always
sure.
I was very much inspired by how Bob Dylan, hired the band. Get a band, get people who already know,
Yeah.
what to do, between, amongst themselves. And the shorthand and just the osmosis between Jim and Ray, it's pretty incredible. These guys have been playing, they're playing together over 30 some years together. And before that, they also
Saves you money in the studio too.
As far as the studio goes, I definitely had to watch the clock because no one is swimming with money, and I never did more than 3 takes of anything.
Mhm.
And I have been in studio with people, 26 takes on a single
Sure.
phrase of the vocal,
Yeah, sure.
and more, 40. They keep
I've
going.
been in that situation as
that
well.
would be-
So I'm going to actually move on from transmigrations now.
Yes.
But thank you for giving us the backstory of how it came together. Sounds like this kind of helped establish an artistic identity of sorts working on this album. And then you produced another album called Goril, or Destiny, a few years later. And I want to, as I'm watching the chat window over here, I'm hearing people mention how, or I'm reading people mention how freeling is often done in the style of a tango, which of course was like the dance, one of the dance crazes of that era. And the next song we're going to listen to also has a kind of strong tango association. One moment. So we'll actually get to hear a little bit of a tango here. So it's a song called Tate Mama. This is a song kind of deals with a son's affection for his parents, kind of work that they put into creating a home, raising a family, and maybe expresses a little bit of regret, on the part of the child for not living up to their expectations to the fullest. But so this is a song that I believe is often attributed to Benzion Whitler. He was a famous singer who played it a lot and recorded it, but it would seem maybe the song was not composed by him, but just kind of became, so closely associated with him that he kind of became known as its composer. So I have a recording of Whitler singing this song in the style of a tango. So let's take a brief listen to that.
Nun an Inhalt läuft es fein schnell. Jeder strebt die Zeit, soll etwas geben. Das Glück verschwinden soll das Schwell. Aber noch viel ärger ist am Menschensleben, wenn's blondet seine Schumme liest allein. Sie will durchs Leben und Glücken streben, es stickt den Hals mir a Gewein. Tate Mami, Gitte getreue, haben mir meine Jungen gezertelt im Verlies, sehr Hals zerstochen, sehr Heim zerbrochen, gebracht sich an den Spott, in das Leben sie verwies.
So it doesn't really get any more tango-y than that. I don't think. Pretty kind of classic tango sound. So let's take a listen to Wolf's version. This is the first song from Wolf's second album, Sorry. I was just saying that I remember hearing that piece. It was the first piece of your music that I ever heard. And I had been spending all this time listening to these avant-garde jazz musicians, you know, riffing on various kinds of Jewish music, which is so much of what's on the Tzaddik label. And then I had read, you know, things about you, these comparisons to Bob Dylan and Willie Nelson and all this other stuff. And then hearing Tata Mama and just being kind of floored. I don't know what I expected, but it was just a really powerful performance. So I thought maybe a good question to go into after this song is kind of what goes into arranging a song. You have this, you know, piece of music that's kind of known as a tango. How do you get from a kind of, you know, a 1940s tango sound to what we just heard?
It's a good question. And it's not that easy to articulate because of the process. So much of the process is intuitive. It's intuitive, and I might, you know, I just might, well, yeah, just, you know, hunker down with my guitar and, you know, moan and hum the lyrics, you know, into the lyrics, and then somewhere in there, the you know, the germ, you know, develops and sprouts, and but you know, when you know, you go into the studio, you know, preparations are made beforehand. You know, the guys get you know, lead sheets or whatever, you know, chord charts, and like that, and you know, because of their vast experience and us being kind of contemporaries, we're all kind of the same age. They get my references, whereas younger people, you know, if you're, you know, it's not 20, 30 years, whatever, you know, age difference, you can't take for granted. They know, you know who I might be talking about if I throw out a name, you know, like a 50s singer or something. If I say Marty Robbins, huh? You know, it just, and you can't blame them, of course. That's just how it is. But anyway, the Lonesome Brothers, they're real, you know, music fans, and you know, they know the canon. You know, they know the history.
Do you go out and do you seek a lot of recordings of a particular song? Do you try to like hear the way that everybody else has recorded a song? Or do you take a more kind of individual approach?
Usually somebody's version, you know, will have resonated with me. And you know, I build on that. I'm certainly interested, you know, in, you know, in other versions of stuff, you know, I might have done, and like that, and you know, and given the technology and you know, the, you know, smart devices, and you know, the stuff in my personal feed, you know, never ceases to, you know, amaze me. It just you bringing me all this stuff that you know, declared an interest, and so it's, you know, I'm always getting obscure, let's say, versions of things, and so that's all, and that's always fun, because you know, something culturally just kind of blow your mind. So there's an Arabic version of my Yiddish Yamama. That's, that's, you know. So, you know, things like that I enjoy very much. Yeah. But do I need every version? No, not that. obsessive.
You don't go make a study of a
No,
particular song.
no.
Yeah,
Usually that comes after, and it has come
I see.
after, and putting my music out there, and especially when it got branded, by getting on Zorn's label, Tzaddik, that it kind of adds value and legitimization, and then you start to hear from people, and and which has been great, because I heard from a lot of people who are real scholars, and they put in the time to have this foundation of the music, which I very much respect, and certainly enjoy talking and communicating with these Mavinim, these experts. I love that. So,
could you talk a little about how you became involved with Tzaddik, because you're not one of these avant-garde jazz musicians or something. You're a bit of an outlier within the realm of radical Jewish culture, even. So, so how did that come about?
So, Transmigrations I made on my own money. I promote it. It did make a very strong impact in our, in the Jewish musical world, and I got reviewed a lot, and people wrote about me in their dissertations. Several books included the music, and so it but anyway, and it sold, and I got a few bucks here and there, like that. And the thing is, though, after 5 years, it remained in indie hell. In other words, any independent, I mean, you can only, your read is only as wide as what you can afford for promotion, time and money. So there I was, and it was kind of frustrated, because the reviews and the praise, they were just very, very encouraging and stuff, but this is and I'm not the only one, but does not reflect in the marketplace. So I knew that next rung was Tzaddik Records. When Transmigrations was still a cassette, I sent it to Zorn. He said, very nice, no sale. When it was a CD, I sent it again. It was, I had a booklet, and it was a finished product. Again, thanks, no sale. So at that point, you think a lesser man would have just given up, given up after 2 rejections. Well, a buddy of mine said, approach him again. This time, try this. Fine. I approached him a 3rd time. He bought the record from me on the 3rd time.
What was this?
I'm not, I don't even know, because I don't remember changing. Basically, he said, here's my record. This is my record. And I knew, like I say, in our world, it's a very small world. Look, where am I going to go with it?
Yeah.
In terms of the record business, where am I going to take it? And Zorn was the guy. So he bought it. And so some funny stuff happened in the interim. So one was, okay, he's going to take it. I don't know if he actually told me his mom had recently passed, and I think maybe the Yiddish, the sentiment and stuff maybe triggered something around that. But anyway, he took the record. So he says, okay, going to change it. Going to change the cover. going to change the title. I said, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
then he started, pressing his point. You will all be amused. He said, in terms of my appearance, he said, Wolf, he says, I hate to tell you this, but you ain't no Burt Lancaster. He says to me.
Because your picture's on the front, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well, you can't argue with that. Then the second part, and then I said, in essence, I said, listen, and I just pulled it out of the air. I said, listen, James Joyce published Ulysses himself. When he got a publisher, they didn't change the title, right? He goes, this ain't Ulysses. I said, okay, am I going to argue? No, it's not Ulysses. But anyway, this guy he's a very strong personality.
Sure.
And he says that and I'm not budging. I'm not budging on this. The title and the cover at this point have been out there 5 years. People know it. They like it. He's not going to change it. So he says, send back the money. I laughed. And I said, John, chill. I just said, chill. And he did. And then for years since I was a kid, I've been collecting these little trading cards, musicians, actors, and stuff. I had a Burt Lancaster with long hair and a headband, which I made a color Xerox. I sent it to Zorn. I said, actually, I am kind of like a Burt Lancaster, right? He phoned me up chuckling,
You won him over with humor.
Chuckling, took the album, did not change the title, did not change the cover, the photo. What he did do to save a penny, he took out the Yiddish from the booklet. And okay, so I said, okay, fine.
That's why I had to ask you for transliterations. Yeah.
So I said, I won those, those bigger battles. I'll give in here. And it came out, and then he gave me a contract to make Goy Roll. And I will tell you that is much less pressure when you're spending the other guy's money.
Yeah.
And that's, so that's good. Though I will say to make it even more beautiful, I put in some of my own money. I just, what I thought it takes. I'll spend a little bit here. So that's it. And that's how I got involved with him.
So I want to play one more song off of Goril. I'm going to do this one without introduction because it's a very well-known song. We're talking about kind of versions of things. So I think it's a song everybody's going to know.
Can I just say something quickly, Jeff?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So Zorn does not interfere with the artist's vision of his own recording and work.
Mm-hmm.
He does insist that you have a producer, which in my case, I was able to choose and hire, to John's approval and satisfaction, the redoubtable stalwart Frank London produced Goy Roll. And we really didn't have any problems, that we couldn't sort out quickly. So okay, that's what I wanted to say.
We might actually hear him on this song. I can't remember, but
okay.
Let's take a listen. I will advance the slide in a moment.
Auf den Vogel liegt das Kälbel, liegt gebunden mit a Strick. Hoch in Himmel flieht das Schwelbel, freit sich, dreht sich hin und zurück. Lacht der Wind in Korn, lacht und lacht und lacht, lacht er up, a Tuga ganzen mit a halber Nacht. Donna, 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 Donna. Schreit das Kälbel, sucht der Poer, welche heißt dich seiner Kalb? Wolks gekehrt seiner Vögel, Wolks gekehrt zu seiner Schwalb. Bittne Kälber, Titten men bin, in men schleppt sei, in men Schacht. Wes hat Fliegel, fliegt da rauf zu, ist bei keinem nicht kein Knecht. Lacht der Wind in Korn, lacht und lacht und lacht, lacht er up, a Tuga ganzen mit a halber Nacht. Donna, 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 Donna. Donna, 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 Donna. Lacht der Wind in Korn, lacht und lacht und lacht, lacht er up, a Tuga ganzen mit a halber Nacht. Donna, 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 Donna.
All right, it seems like everybody kind of picked up on the song somewhat quickly there. I think it's certainly one of the most unique versions I've ever heard. what is it like to sort of come into a song that has such a strong kind of association that everybody, you know, that so many people have a certain affiliation with?
You know, I look at all this stuff as belonging to me. That this is a bequeathed legacy, and you know, the writers and the singers, whoever they were, in some way, they're like me. They like music. They like to make up songs and record them, and if they get into the business, doesn't matter. But to me, it's the core feeling and sentiment, intelligent, cogent lyrics that I feel one I can relate strongly to from some aspect of my own experience, or even imaginings, but I think it's just mine to I feel like the music is like a baton. I was handed off this baton, and so I'm gonna run my part of it. And the two versions I might have known of this song were Theodore Bickel, who did a very jaunty, I think, kind of an anomalous arrangement.
I've heard other versions that are very up-tempo like that too.
It's very jaunty.
Mm-hmm.
What's the theme here? A calf being led to slaughter. I don't think that goes together. The version I really like, and I think captures the song, is Joan Baez, who had a record on it, probably in the 60s, on her, probably among her first Vanguard recordings, if I remember right. Yeah, I certainly approach this stuff with the greatest respect, but also if this stuff belongs to anybody, belongs to me as much as anybody, and that's just how how I feel about it. So
well said.
Yeah.
I do want to leave time for some questions, but let's play one more song. We'll kind of end on a lighthearted note, and I hope it comes across okay. I'm going to be kind of streaming a live performance from that's coming from YouTube. This is a song called Lo mir trachten nur von Heint. Let's just think about today. So let me try to stream that, and then there's lots of stuff happening in the chat now. I know that everybody is, I'm sure everybody's really excited to ask you some questions and learn more about you, Wolf. So we'll cut to that as soon as this song is done.
This next song. This is called Lo mir trachten nur von Heint. Let's just think about today. Enjoy the moonbeams, and who knows what, fate will divide us, so let's just think about today.
Oh
mother mir will immer ganz geschehen. Jetzt in der Welt, hier sind's beiden geht. Lass mir trachten nur den Arm. Lass mir trachten nur den Arm. Lady Cats. Thank you.
So we get to conclude here by seeing you live. We get to see the Lonesome Brothers there backing you up. And if you hadn't figured it out by now, that was Wolf's lovely wife, Freddie Katz, singing a duet with him on that song. So just was perusing the chat to see if there were any specific questions. I didn't see any questions, getting just lots of lovely comments about how much people are enjoying discovering your music and enjoying your own particular kind of take on Yiddish songs. So if it's okay with Phil and Geraldine, we can just probably open it up to a general kind of Q&A.
I just want to say something because I love it when people put their own stamp and their own personality into music, because that's what it's all about. And I hear this today and it's so refreshing. Instead of people looking at cover versions and copying it, it doesn't bring your own personality out. And what Wolf's done is bringing his own feelings and understanding of the words, the way he interprets it, and it shows in the music. Thank you very much for doing that. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Someone's asking, what's the next project on your horizon?
Yeah. I have a song that I'm interested in recording and telling a story about, through video. These days, easier said than done with everything remote. Everything is remote. And, so this is, for me, it's not great because I need to get together with people, and the idea of doing it all through the computer does not appeal to me. So kind of waiting for for a better time. I'm definitely interested in hearing from any producers, funding sources, and I'm looking for the next project, and I don't lack ideas, but even though things have gotten a lot easier, you still need to have a few bucks to to get anything done. The first one, Transmigrations, I was able to record because the first time in my life, after working for Spielberg, I had saved money for the first time in my life. And the circumstances were such that if I had not separated at that time, from my wife, I don't think I would have justified spending the family money, on it. But as it happened, I could do it, and we reconciled and worked on other stuff since and all, and continue. We do translation projects together, many of them like that, and marriage is going on 38 years, by the way. So.
Well, after that last song, I think we're all glad that you reconciled for many reasons.
Is there anything you can do with the Volksbein?
Wife is just a lovely person. So.
There's a Yiddish Volksbein, and they seem to be currently doing things. So I was just wondering whether you can get on, you know, in that sort of group and bring out your stuff with them, because it seems to me it fits in quite nicely.
With whom?
It's the Yiddish
Common Molotex group.
yeah.
Yiddish Volksbühne.
Yeah, because I think that just would work, because they're all into different ideas, and if Wolf has ideas, maybe he can put them over to Zalman, and maybe they can schmooze a bit and get something going. Just a thought.
Yeah,
maybe.
I don't know the scene there, so I'm only doing it. I'm from the other side of the pond. So.
yeah.
Well, you know, I concur with Alex. I mean, and everything Alex has said. First of all, I thought that this hour has been so revealing in terms of possibilities of Yiddish song interpretation. I mean, you have, Wolf, expanded my entire conceptualization of what's possible. And I think that Alex is onto something with the Yiddish Volksbühne, because they are looking to expand in every possible direction instead of same old, same old. And I think that that there could be a very interesting partnering there with Zalman, because he has a tremendous musical talent and you have a tremendous creativity. And you're inspired from an American's perspective, in my view. I mean, I would like you to share with us how you dreamed up the arrangement and the country song style of that last piece. It was just phenomenal.
You know, I'm a product of, you know, radio and coffee houses and, you know, and you know, records, and this stuff, that stuff is all, you know, it's just all cooking. It's all just cooking within. And I did have an opportunity, you know, to make my records and bring forth, you know, some of these, you know, ideas and thoughts, which at first, usually when I first started to put this out, and just to describe it and say, well, Yiddish with blues and you know, country rock and stuff, the first thing people want to do is laugh, because they think it's going to be a joke. I hope
I
know I've you know, done away with this notion that
it's not a joke.
Yeah.
It's serious, because other people did it. The pop Hasidic world have done it with their theme is, they call it Hasidic pop, but it's not. It's country, western, and blues, and that's what they use, the traditional stuff, and hop it up. What you've done is I think, very cultural in the sense, because the words that you use are not lost with the music, how you've interpreted it. So that those words and the way it is sung still brings it over. Whereas other people, you lose a thread or you lose the meaning by popping it up or changing the rhythms. What you've done, whether it's subconsciously or consciously, it doesn't make any difference, but it works. So the way it's interpreted, and I'm the poignancy of these songs, Donna Donna, and all the other words and so on and so forth. And I've been listening to them, and I'm a man, lyrics are very important to me. And lyrics have to come over not just by note, but by the feel, the feeling of the words. And that's what you do. And this is the first time I've ever heard you. And thank God I have, and it's you know, it's very refreshing, and that's how I feel. It's a personal feeling, and that's how it is. It's come over to me, and you've got another fan now in the UK.
Thank you very much.
Something Wolf said to me probably the first time I met you in 2007, we were talking about this, and you said that the blues and country, I believe the phrase you used, you said they carry Yiddish very well, that there was a very kind of natural fit between the Yiddish language and this style of music. And I see Joel Rubin has a question. Hi, Joel.
Hi there. Hi, Wolf. We finally see each
Hi.
other in person. I've been corresponding with Wolf for almost 20 years, on and off, but we've never met face to face. So this is, I guess, as close as we're going to get for right now. I'd be interested in knowing, because I know you had a whole prehistory before you started doing Yiddish song of involvement in music and blues especially. And I thought maybe you could talk about that and how that informed more specifically, other than just, honky tonks and that sort of thing. But I mean, as I understood it, you worked as a sort of a accompanist to Big Joe Williams and some other blues musicians and this sort of thing. Maybe you could talk about that.
With Big Joe Williams, I carried his guitar. He was illiterate.
That's a start.
I carried his guitar, which if you ever saw it, you would not believe. It was a homemade 9-string. It was held together with hardware screws and bits of other guitar strings and stuff. But anyways, you could not play with Big Joe easily because he had his own tunings and whatnot. But whatever, I carried his guitar. I ordered food off restaurant menus. He was illiterate. And I helped him send money home, and he would get a money order and he would make his mark. I'm talking an X. And so that, but I did, live very close with him for 10 glorious days in Montreal as an 18-year-old. An 18-year-old, the Mississippi Delta blues man is your buddy. It doesn't get any better, and I had a great time. Here's a guy who, in his life, he was able to see the auction block his family came from, stuff like that.
Wow.
So he was. Certainly,
Were there other
special person.
musicians that you, quote unquote, like people you played with, groups that you might, I remember your bio describes like musical apprenticeships, basically
Right.
guys you played with, you learned from.
So the first guys I learned from were the guys in Toronto. They had this place, Yorkville Village. It became a music center, coffee houses and stuff. So that's where the coffee houses and bars were. But anyway, the first guys were just guys who'd show up. They were guys who sat on porches and stoops and just picked, and so I'd check that out and like that. And I joined, the first band I can remember joining was the original Upper Canada Ragtime Mama Jug Band, which you got bookings, and I played washtub bass, jug, and harmonica, and then moved on to rhythm guitar at some point. So this band had a guy who made a bit of a reputation for himself, Mendelssohn Joe, up in Toronto, and a woman who has since passed away, Daisy DeBolt. So yeah, I played with them in as far back as '63. I remember playing a band the bomb demonstration with those people. When I left home there, I would just run into people, meet them casually, in coffee houses and whatnot, and I played with a Micmac Indian guy, Willie Dunn. He's still active. And we didn't play together, but he was a great mentor to me. And we hung out a lot. And he also was a hard guy to play with because he has his own tunings and whatnot. But a great American folk singer and songwriter, Richie Havens, was a big influence and a mentor and a very, kindred spirit and a kind soul. And we would get together whenever we're in the same city, like that. And then I did not. Then do it just folks.
Is it because you didn't have the formality of the structure of these music schools that was probably more helpful? Because these guys that you mentioned seem to also do their own thing, so to speak, and break all the rules. And because you can break the rules and the rules are not there,
right?
So it comes through, and that's the beauty of music, jam sessions and moving on and finding things and structure and making your own structure and making your own sound and making it your own. And these guys that you've mentioned and the types of groups that you said are these type of people, and you seem very at home with that. So if it was a structural composition type performance written by these type of composers, it probably would restrict you too much for your own feelings.
Exactly. You definitely get that. I'm glad, I don't have the training in a lot of ways because it would.
Well, that's brilliant. That's why you're so good. That's what it's all about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you. Great.
Your creativity for sure.
Well, I can only work with what I had, and I thought it would be very disingenuous if I'm just going to repeat.
It's called Neshama. It's called Neshama. And that's what it is.
Yeah. I also too, by the time I actually got into the studio, I mean, I made these little, funky little records, throughout the years. People had, little Ampex recorders in their basements, and you'd find your way down there, and what kid doesn't want to, record and stuff. But anyway, so I did that stuff. But I tell you, I was in the scheme of things. I was already quite old to be making, a first record. When I did, I was on the eve of my 50th birthday. So, in the end doesn't mean anything. The performance is the performance, but that just happens to be, how it happened. And
age is a number. That's all it is.
That's it, man. That's it, man. I still want to put things out there, for sure. But the things have changed a lot, and in terms of anything resembling an income stream for your creations, the people have no idea how bit by bit, we're already, the small numbers. They've been diminished further, if not taken away altogether. And so it's just not what it used to be. One has to adapt and adjust. And I was listening to the one musician and basically saying, in the future, in the very near future, what will be sold in terms of art and music will be what will be sold. The actual item that will be sold will be a string of computer code.
NFTs.
Yeah, NFTs.
Right.
And that'll be it. You forget about having a record.
It kills it. All these things that are computerized, it takes the top, it takes the bottom. It's so squeezed into something that you lose, you miss, you don't hear certain things that you should be hearing. And it's a killer, this digitalization. if I have an LP and I listen to the digital version, it's so much more on the original LP than I would
Yes.
on the digital.
Sure. Yeah.
And the thing is that the public, quote unquote, the public, people expect music to be free now.
Mhm.
You know, and if any 15-year-old kid adept with computers, he can get anything free. He can get anything free off the net, you know. So well, you know, it's sad because all these small little trickles could
But,
be
yeah, but look at these superstars that just make money from being on the computer and having so many hits. I mean, most of them are boring, you know.
yeah, it's music. It's music. The stuff.
It's not even
by
music. I don't even know what it is. But there
No,
you go.
it's created a lot by committee. Somebody is given a space and create a grid, fill that grid. Then the next guy gets it, is given a space that here's a grid, fill it with your stuff. And the thing is, it's constructed.
But LPs came
Yeah.
back. LPs are very fashionable. The original, LPs are being redone, and they're fashionable, and people want to buy an LP as opposed to something digital. So
some people are very passionate about that, and a good thing.
People are still paying good money to see and hear live performances, and even live performances that are being streamed into people's homes still have a fee. So that's one of the reasons why I think there could be this really interesting partnering possibility with the Yiddish Volksbühne, because they have just moved into that arena, but their programming is very, very niche. Whereas the kind of thing that you do is, it has a broader audience. Let's put it that way. It has a broader audience. When you were playing your last number, honestly, I'm not a native Yiddish speaker, and I was loving having the transliteration and the translations, because then I could really understand the lyric. But on the last number where there was none, I found myself like just getting into the groove of the country music thing. Honestly, I didn't really know what the lyric was about. And because I'm a music person, sometimes the lyrics don't even matter to me that much. So for whatever it's worth, I think it's something you could really have some fun with.
Thank you.
Well said, Marsha.
Like, people are kind of starting to dwindle away, and it's been, I guess, going on close to 2 hours now. I don't know if anyone has any more questions for Wolf. If you want to leave people with any information, I dropped your website URL in there just so if anyone wanted to
Right.
reach out to anybody, you feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or you want to get connected with Wolf.
Let me mention quickly that on my YouTube channel, which is under my name. So in 1986, I recorded a woman named Sarah Nomberg-Schittig in her home at the time in a small farm in Quebec. So I when the COVID thing started to happen, I got back into these tapes and edited them and posted them. This is very interesting to folklorists, ethnomusicologists, people. So Sarah sings 11 songs that she remembered from the 20s and 30s. She sung them to me in '86. She had not spoken Yiddish since the end of World War II. She remembered these songs word for word. They are quite an awesome little archive. There's 11 songs. Now, Sarah, in her own right, is a historical personage. In that, while in Auschwitz, her job was to be an aide to Mengele in the hospital. So she's quite a person in her own right, and there are books written. She's written books herself, and there are books that she has been mentioned, of course. But anyways, it's like my first video camera. I just thought I got to record Sarah, and I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did, and they are quite a treat that she remembered these songs, and I urge you all to give them a listen. It's very interesting stuff. So I want to thank you, Jeff, and everyone for coming. It's been
great to reconnect with you again, Wolf.
Yeah, same here, and I thank you for all the kind words, and yeah, let's keep in touch, and
Phil or Geraldine, would either of you like to
obviously
say anything to close us out here?
Thanks to you both for a fantastic session and some of the best music to hear on a Tuesday evening. I wondered, Alex, do you want to just very quickly say something about your ECA event tomorrow?
Yeah.
Three of us left.
Thanks, Phil. ECA, European Cantors Association, I'm interviewing or talking to Jackie Mendelson tomorrow, 7 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. Eastern Seaboard time, or whatever it's called, New York time. And I don't know what it is, California time, but or Israel is 2 hours later. But I'll be talking to Jackie about his career, and we'll be playing some music. And it's a fascinating insight into a man that doesn't often give interviews, and we're very, very fortunate to have him. And to tell everybody, ECA is partners with this group. We have a different wing, which is our academic wing, which these COZ broadcasts and shows with our partners are brought to you, and very, very enjoyable. And thank you, Phil, for taking over and dealing with this. We really appreciate it. And to Mark and everybody else that puts these things together for us, takes the headaches away from it. And we appreciate it. And we like to, you can join us as well as we and our group joins you. And there's also, if you want to go onto our website, www.cantors.eu, and if you want the latest newsletter, which has just come out, and thanks to Geraldine for putting it together for us, and we appreciate that. So if you want to have a good read and know what's going on and coming up in the future, go onto our website and you get all the information about COZ and Voice of the Cantor Series 2, which is starting every fortnight. So look forward to seeing you guys. Thank you very much, and thank you for hosting us, and brilliant to again, I must say, Wolf, it's such a pleasure, and it's very refreshing. And why haven't I not heard of you before today? I do not know, but thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Alex. But the song says, let's just think about today. So good luck tomorrow.